Sorry, I'm just trying to ensure that the screen is wide enough for everyone to see. Yeah, please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
All right. So good evening once again. I'm so happy to be here tonight. And today we're going to be talking about something every product manager, delivery manager, product delivery manager, product consultant faces at some point. And I would say we still face till date. And that is how do you make smart product decisions even when you don't have all the answers? Um, I'm sure that a lot of people would expect that there's a one magical framework that would help you make smart decisions and take that challenge away. But um, I'm sorry to break it to you. You never really have all the answers to all the questions, all the uncertainty when delivering a product or when creating a product. And I would say that that's perfectly okay. Uh, even the best product managers, best product delivery managers never have the answers. So a little bit about me. I think this context is needed because from the introduction, I realized that a lot of people have different background. And if this helps make things better, I also did not have a background in product management. I studied agriculture in school and I never learned how to write code. I don't know anything about product management a few years ago, but here I am today shipping product across different industries from fintech to banking to telecommunications. And I've led products. One of my most challenging and one of the biggest projects I've ever shipped out would be this product where I shipped across 19 countries and we've been able to serve 270 million users and generated a very huge revenue for the organization. And I can tell you for a fact that I do not have the answers from the one. I remember the first day I was assigned this project. I was as confused as hell. I had so many questions to ask, but what made me stand out at that moment was that I was not scared to ask stupid questions. I don't care how my question sounds to anyone. I would always ask because I think the most unsafe thing I would do is staying quiet and just guessing and not asking the right question. So if I would study agriculture and never had any background in product manager who was newly in the space in the product management product delivery space could actually lead a project across 19 countries, serving 270 million users with no downtime. I would say that I think anybody, regardless of your background, can actually ship any product, even if you don't have all the answers. And that's the reality of a product space. That's the truth because we clearly don't always understand the full picture of a product. There is no clear answer on how the product is going to do, if the product is going to be successful or not. Nobody has the full picture, not when you start, not even years of experience that you've gathered. You never get the full answer. But the most successful product managers I've come across are the ones who um they don't have the answers, but they're ready to move regardless. They don't wait till they have all the perfect answers before they move. And one thing is very constant, requirements would constantly shift. We sometimes have no data to make informed decisions. There's going to be change of stakeholders changing their minds on what they want. And the risk there is waiting till you're very certain before you actually ship out the product or before you actually move your product to the customers. Um, So whenever I'm in such situations, there are certain things I put in place that ensure that regardless of if I'm unclear, if I'm not sure, if I don't have the answers, I put them in place and has helped me to make so many decisions that helped me ship product across different industries. And I'll just dive into some of these things I've put in place. So the first, I call it the PACE framework, and it's not, I'll say framework, but I don't want you to see it as one very rigid framework that you have to stick to or call it the PACE framework. And if you don't stick to it, you are not doing the right thing. But I like to call it the PACE framework. There are so many frameworks in the product management. You see Invest, you see Racing Metrics, you see there's so many things that you are supposed to do to deliver a successful product. But I don't want this to be a session where we are sticking to what is in the book, but basically being realistic with what actually happens in the real world. So what I actually do in most cases is follow this process, which is probe whatever product I'm building. If there are any risks, if there are anything I need to test, I ensure that I do that first. Assess how reversible is it, what matters really for what we are actually shipping at that time. Also commit. Commit here means basically deciding, breaking it down and unblocking the team. And then the most important thing for me is ship small, learn and ship again. So I'll deep go there. I'm so sorry. I'll go break down this each of these framework into how I would approach it in different phases. So the first thing I do is probe. I ask questions. I test if there is any doubt. And I want to say something very important here. There are no stupid questions in product. I've said it before and I'm saying it again. Asking questions will save you a lot of things. It gives you the clarity that you need. And I also believe that the most dangerous thing that a product manager can do is to stay quiet and act like you have it all figured out. The fear of not knowing something should not stop you from getting the information that you need. So once you have that mindset first that it's okay not to have all the answers, and I think the major problem has been solved. But and probing means basically matching your test to your doubt. So if you are doubting about something, there are several uncertainties that will come to your mind when you're shipping a product. You're not sure exactly what your user wants. There are certain things that you need to put in place that can help you make some certain decisions that you need. Say for example, you don't know what your user wants. You're shipping a product, but you're not quite sure what your user wants. You can conduct a quick market research. You can build a prototype. You can get people to test it before you start building it. And then you get the feedback. That way you have a little data that you can work with. Another approach that I've seen that I've used and has worked is running an A/B test in a very controlled environment. Say, for example, the initial prototype or the initial product you shipped out, you can actually set an environment where you group your users, and then the first set of users will continue using the previous product you've built, and then the new product that you've just shipped can be tested by a different set of users. You do your comparison and get your feedback that way. So another approach is probably doing a spike or a time box text or a pilot with one team. I'll give you an example here. So I was working on a team, and it's four teams actually, and we were not sure on what product delivery approach we should be taking for the project, because it was a very complex project. Rather than committing all the four teams that I was leading at that time to ship out this large scale product, I decided to run a pilot test with one of these teams. So the goal was to ship out in iterations, and with that one team, we're able to check if there's any improvement we need to work on, just see if the solution or if the approach that we have put in place can actually work for the team. And guess what? After we ran the iterations with the team, ship out the product, the first phase of the product, it failed woefully. And it wasn't just going to cost us time, resources. If we had test with the larger team, it was also going to cost us a very loss in revenue if we are tested with a larger set of the team. So that's an example of how you get your answers. Sometimes if you're unclear, testing with a control setting, testing with a little team. If you have a large team, you can test with a little team, and just getting the feedback that you need at that time. So I very much believe in failing forward. So work on the smaller things and then get the feedback, and you can then apply the feedback to the larger things that you're working on. And the next thing here would be assess. Um, Assess is basically how hard is this to undo. I believe that assess and probing sometimes work together, and I don't think there's it's an I don't think it's an approach you have to follow step by step. Sometimes you might need to assess before you probe. Sometimes you might need to probe before you assess. It just depends on the nature of the work that you're doing at that time, the kind of product you're shipping at that time. So most times when I am assessing a product, I ask myself a very simple question. Is this a two-way door or a one-way door? Basically, what I mean here is that if I walk through this door, is there a way out or not? And here is what I mean. So say you're building a mobile app and you want to change a text on the mobile app, you want to change a color in the mobile app. That's easily reversible. And sometimes you don't have to wait too long before you make such decisions. But in some cases where it has to do with customer data migration, where it is very complex, and a little failure could mean losing customer data, breaching customer data and customer trust, that would mean that you have to take a step back to assess the work and see the best approach to handle that. For decisions like that, I sit with them. I understand, conduct a risk assessment, and understand the impact of this work. I get my feedback from the small group from the first assessment I've done. I just probe and then ship as I got my feedback. So the nature of the work you're doing, you assess it, you determine the best approach to it. And another thing I put in place in such situation is prioritization with assessment. So by assessing the work, by assessing the risks attached to the work you're shipping, it leads to into prioritization. You're able to know which is the highest risk, which one had the highest value to you, what you're shipping at that time, and focus on get prioritizing that so you can get the answers that you need for making a very valuable product decision. So assessing, it's basically just checking if this is something that would be a huge risk or not, so you can make the right decision at that time. If it's something that you know that it's very much reversible, it's always very comfortable for you to make the decision on time within 5 minutes and don't have to wait for too long. But if it requires a very high critical project or product, it's always advisable to sit with it, slow down and look into it and see the impact on the product at large. Then the next thing here would be commit. So basically, you're just going to decide and unblock your team from whatever blocker that the team is currently experiencing. So here is how I approach committing. I would say break it down. So most times when you have to make a product decision, it can feel very ambiguous, like you're not really sure at what point do you know which is very high risk and which one should you prioritize. So you would always be advisable that you break this down and break it into smaller bits. Break it like you're breaking it for a 5-year hold. Strip the decision down to the barest minimum. That way, you're able to understand what dependencies are attached to this, and you're able to know know how to make the right decision. It just anchors everything, every decisions that you make around that, and also time boxing. Time boxing is very, very key because you don't just come into saying, I just want to ship this soon, but having a fixed time saying, I'm going to ship this by a certain date gives you a sense of accountability and also a momentum, keeps you in the momentum that this is what we are trying to achieve with this product, and you can able to make that decision. And I would also suggest that writing it down. I intentionally use writing it down because I don't want the word to feel, if I say document or create a register, it can feel so ambiguous and like, oh, it's a very huge process. But a simple line of what the assumptions are, what you have chose, what do you want to revisit, what have you agreed on, is a very huge difference, and can stop the team, can help the team can help you make the right decision on a product. So it's wanting to make the right decision, is wanting to ensure that you come back to it and revisit it and be sure that the feedback and the results you've gotten from it are well used and you're able to apply it to all that product that you're shipping. So it's always very advisable to write it down and ensure that you come back to visit it and do not just sit on whether you need to make the decision or not. And then the last one here is evolve. This is my favorite one. I'm very, very big on ship small, learn, and ship again. Um, I'll give a very realistic example. There was a team I joined sometime, and they had spent the last 7 years building an application. And so when I joined the team, it's a mobile application for context, and they started building this 7 years ago. The target audience were actually younger users who had just completed school, graduate NYC, but they spent the last 7 years building, perfecting it, ensuring that it is perfect before they ship out to their customers. But 7 years later, the audience that were targeted for this product had already grown. They're no longer graduate. They are now probably working in a koi company, or they're actually not the same person anymore. And they were waiting for the perfect moment to ship this out. Basically, this just tells you that waiting for the perfect moment means that you will not get the answer you're looking for, because the audience you're targeting had already outgrown what you're looking for. So shipping small, learning, adapting it into the next next product you want to ship, or next feature you want to ship, is a very huge way to get the answers you're looking for when you're building a product. And well, like the example I was given, so when I joined the company, we needed now to build a new product that suit the audience that they were targeting initially. However, someone might say, oh, the audience that was actually targeted in the first place, we now have new 20 years old, but these new 20 years old as well, they are not, the products we have currently cannot serve them, which means that everything they've been building in the last 7 years does not serve any audience currently. So we had to break it down to the barest minimum and see how well we can maximize what we have and ship out what the current audience that we're targeting need, inspect it, learn from it, and adapt it into our next product. And most importantly, it's always very advisable to have a success metric. What success metric are you putting in place to ensure that when you're reviewing, when you're assessing how the product is doing, you can always have something to measure it against, and then you learn from it. If you're doing well, if you're not, then you improve, and then you ship again. That way you fail forward and you get your lessons, you improve the product. And if I can, everyone here are not young, so if you look at 7 years ago, we clearly do not have AI. And currently now things are moving so fast. Things are, nobody's, like, every day when I wake up, I'm already seeing new products. So imagine you're waiting for a perfect product before you get your answers, like before you ship out and get the answers you're looking for. You would probably not get the answer in the first place, because by the time you're shipping out the perfect product, the world has moved forward. So the best thing is to build that thing, the little version you can build, ship it out to the customers, get the answers the feedback you're looking for, is your customers that can actually give them to you, and then implement the feedback you've gotten into the next thing you want to ship. So basically, it's always advisable to ship very small, learn from it, and then ship again. And the most important thing here is stakeholder. Stakeholder is one very key thing, very key factor when you are building a product. You always come across different stakeholders, and I'm sure everyone here will have an idea of what mapping your stakeholders, knowing who your stakeholders are and what they actually need. But here today, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to tell you how most of the stakeholders will respond to, how you can relate with them, how they will respond to decision making as well. So I would say that a stakeholder most times they just want certainty. They want you to be able to tell them that, oh, this is what I think, and be confident in you that you can actually deliver that. And like I said, you clearly not have all the answers. Say, for example, a stakeholder is asking you, when you ship out this product, do you think we're going to get 200 users? You clearly don't know, because you've not shipped out this product. You don't have the answers. But in situations like that, you don't have to fake certainty. You don't have to say what you don't know just to feel massage the ego of the stakeholder. But an example of how things like this can be handled could be, instead of saying, oh, I don't know if the product will perform. You can say things like, we do not have certainty yet on the performance of this product, but we could do an A and B testing to see how the user responds to it. That takes you back to the first thing I said, which is you're probing. You're trying to get a feedback from the market. You're trying to use a control setting to understand, to get the answers to what the stakeholder is asking for. And sometimes it could be, not everybody will does product management actually build a product from scratch. Some actually focus on product delivery management. So if your stakeholder is asking you about how you want to ship the product when it comes to timelines and all of that, sometimes you're not quite sure of the timeline. You're not certain because there are certain dependencies you've not mapped out. There's certain third-party alignment and timeline you need to factor in. So one key thing is you want the trust of your stakeholders. You want to manage their expectations, and that's where um, the way you respond to them really, really, really matters, because you don't have the answers, but you don't want to sound like someone that do not have the answer, that is unsure. So things like that, how you can manage it is basically saying that, from my experience, I think within 3 months we should be able to ship this out, considering that there is no technical dependencies. However, I would align with the team and understand the scope of work and the timeline for that. That way, you're building trust, you're building confidence, and you're taking charge of that. So yeah, there are going to be difficult stakeholders who would be anxious and they just want to know, they want answers. And the key thing from this as well is that the stakeholders too do not have all the answers. So they are just expecting that you manage their expectations. And another thing from my experience would be that even when you've committed, you've given answers, you've made the decision for the product and it's not going as planned, it's actually perfectly fine to always go back to readjust things and to own it and just take ownership of it. And I think the worst thing that any product manager or any delivery product manager can actually do to themselves is trying to act that everything is fine when it's not fine, and not managing expectations. So it's always very advisable that you hone the process regardless of if it's going as planned or not, and just manage the expectation. So yeah, I would like to end this with saying that in product, you never have the full picture. Nobody has the full picture. Like I said, you're probably expecting me to come with one magical framework that you can put in place, but I am going to break it to you once again that nobody has the perfect answer for everything. It's just how we manage the expectations, how we manage the situation of the project, how we manage the complexity of the project. And one thing is very constant in product management, requirements will always shift. There are times you work with no data, you don't have any data to work with, and your stakeholders would maybe push set for things that you cannot even give them. But the most important thing is that that's you knowing deep down that that's not a crisis, and that's just a job, and you don't always have to have all the perfect answer. And what separates a great product person is not that they have the answer, it's just that they move forward without having the answers, by doing things like testing, market research, just managing expectations generally. And that's why I have proposed, in situations like that, you probe it, you assess, you commit, and you evolve. And my favorite part of this is evolving. Ship small. Do not waste time trying to build a perfect product. Ship it out, get the feedback, adapt, keep shipping, and then one day you get all the answers that you need. And it will just all make sense that you're building you've built something that actually solves a real problem. And the most important thing to note as a product manager is that your customers are actually the ones that tell you what they want. You could spend years and years and years trying to build a very perfect product. In fact, I've been on product where the most exciting feature for me is not what excites my customer, our customers rather. They are not even excited about what we are excited about. It could be the simplest thing, like a notification that excites the customer, and you would not get that answer if you don't ship them very fast and also get the feedback. If you're staying waiting to build a perfect product, you won't get that answer. So it's always advisable to start. And to bring it back to our personal life, it's very I've seen a lot of motivational speakers say things like, you don't sit down and just expect things to happen. You just have to move regardless. Move, and then you will see the changes you're looking for. You get the feedback you're, even in our career journey, if you sit down and stick to something, you probably not get the answers you're looking for, the fulfillment you're looking for. So it basically just applies to when you're developing a product, because you can't get the answers you're looking for if you don't ship them out, get the feedback, and then adapt it into the subsequent products you'll be shipping. So a good decision made today beat a perfect decision made too late. That's what I will use to end this presentation. Thank you very much for listening to me.
All right. Thank you so much, Oyindamola. So I think now is the time for questions and answers. So if you have questions, now is the time. Just signify by raising up your hand, and then we take it. That's all right. So we have Edith. Hi, Edith. You can go ahead with your question.
Hello, good evening. Oyindamola, thank you so much. It's a very insightful, a very entertaining session you've taken us on. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of trying to forge ahead when you don't have all the answers, and of course, in the project manager's role, that's one that you have to be on top of the scenarios, the situations, the circumstances you find yourself in with your stakeholders, with your team members, with your designers, with your co-managers, your uplines, with the top line you're reporting to. What do you do, Ma, when you find yourself in a chaos situation, when you're in a chaotic situation, when on that day nothing just seems to be making sense? Because I know that it will happen a lot. A situation whereby you have to be a duck and be cool, or you have to hustle it out and knock your head on the wall. And how do you manage such a situation? I know you've been there before because you've done great things in the PM field.
That's a very, very, very interesting question. And yes, I've been there before several times where things are not going as planned. I hope I get your question correctly. Things are not going as you planned them, and you have to just deliver. Um, I'm very, one thing I always say is communication is very, very, very key. Most of the problems that teams have today could actually be solved if they communicate clearly. So communication is a very, very communication and collaboration is very, 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 very important in a product management team. So in an example where a project is not going as expected, there are certain people who are expecting that you should deliver this in a certain day, but things had gone south. What I would do in that situation first is to manage their expectations. And that takes me back to the stakeholder conversation we had, because a stakeholder would want to know what's going on. They would want to know why the product is not being shipped. And the one thing that can really, really frustrate a stakeholder who is expecting a product to be shipped is when the communication expectation is not managed. An example of this that has happened to me was when I was shipping a product, I was working on a product, I was really excited about it, but we were not going to meet the timeline. And this was going to be a very big product, which if we do not meet the timeline, we're going to be fined by CBN. And I didn't communicate to the stakeholders that were involved. I just felt like I have it under control. But unfortunately for me, we did not meet the timeline that was set. So on the day, on the final day, you can imagine walking into a stakeholder meeting and you're saying, "I'm sorry, we were not able to." It was a very, very terrible situation that day, because what I could have done was discuss with them. Like, I knew a few days before that we were most likely not going to meet the timeline, so let them know ahead why we're not meeting a timeline. What are you putting in place, and what are the like? Just manage their expectations. And in that kind of situation, in a product management team, I would say that um, there's always a workaround. So if you sit with your team, your development team, if you sit with them, sometimes you need to be able to help them think like a user, like, okay, yeah, we cannot meet this timeline. How can we find a workaround? In some cases, there could be a back-end workaround that we can actually just ship out, and which is what we ended up doing that day. And it's something I should have done as the as the product manager on that team, because if I'd sit with my team and we sit down and review the work and say, what can we do if we cannot meet this timeline, we wouldn't be in the situation where I'm going into a meeting with the stakeholder and have nothing to talk about. So you always find a workaround. First thing is manage your stakeholders' expectation. Secondly, sit with your team, find a workaround around it. If it's a mobile implementation, a front end implementation, how can you ensure that the back end can do something that would ensure that we ship out in the meantime while the front end is still doing their work, and just buy us some time. And then another very important thing is to understand the root cause of why that thing happened in the first place. What was the reason why um we didn't meet the timeline in the first place, so that subsequent products that or projects you're working on, you can actually avoid that. Say, for example, it could be dependencies that were not properly raised. There was no proper communication on from the front end and the back end. So what you do in that situation is next project ensure that it's never going to happen where dependencies are not properly tracked. And if there are dependencies that have not been resolved, there's always one thing I've known for a fact over my years of experience. There's always a way around it. Find the way the team can move forward while the dependencies is being resolved. So that's what I'll say.
All right. Did you get answers to your questions? Thank you so much, Oyindamola.
Yes, Oyindamola, thank you. That was insightful. Thank you very much.
You're
All
welcome.
right. So I saw Grind Labs and we're up earlier. Hello, Grind Lab. Or was the rate and a mistake? All right. Does anyone else have questions for Oyindamola as you bring this session to a wrap? She's here for us. You can see her pretty face waiting for our questions. Does anyone else have questions? Okay, so this means we're clear. Oyinda, I actually think you should ask them questions from the session. We are sure, yeah, for real. So we are
Someone is
sure that
raising hands.
yeah, I really think so. We can just take the remaining 6 to 5 minutes to ask them questions and then let's get answers. So we are sure
I
that
think someone is
okay,
raising. I'm not sure
we've
if it's
got
he
it.
or she.
All right. Yeah, I can see in Lutana. So after Lutana, we can just do a little questions from your end, right? Thank you. So Lutana, you have questions. You can go ahead, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so the question is basically in terms of recruitment, like hiring process. So if you're like going through what's it called, maybe you have like interviews that you're trying to like go with, like what are, like advice you give somebody in terms of like them hiring you, like what do you need to do to stand out, basically. So like I would like to know like some tips sense of like interview process, what it takes to stand out, and stuff like that.
Okay. I'm going to be very, very honest here. The interview market is very brutal right now. So if you are interviewing, you have to, should I say, come correct? And this is not me being rude or being saying you don't have the capacity. So what I would advise to anyone right now to stand out is lay your hands on, if you don't have any product management skill before now, try as much as possible to at least work on a product or a project at anyone, and get the real life experience. Because yeah, we're all going to read books. You've gone through a boot camp, but sometimes applying it might be slightly different. So getting your hands dirty is very, very crucial. And that way it will guide you when you're being asked questions around the product, because an interviewer lately can tell if you've not really worked on a product compared to someone that worked on a product. I don't know if you get one. So try and get as many hands-on experience. Volunteer. There are so many companies that are just looking for someone to volunteer and work on a product. Another thing is you can sit down and map your current skill. I studied agri-care, I said, but I didn't even start as a product manager. I did other jobs before being a product manager. I worked as a credit risk underwriter. I worked as a salesperson. And one thing that stood me out when I got my first job was the fact that I had an experience in credit risk. So the very first application I ever built was actually a credit tracker for a collections team. So a collections team will want to call their customers to refund their money. I built a tracker, and one thing that made me start was that I already understood what it means to be a credit risk underwriter. So look at the skill you have. It makes you stand out a lot. If you someone said he worked in a Greek and all that, I don't know who, but if you're going to go into tech, I would say look for agri tech. If you're in a sales, if you work in a bank, look for a fintech company and try to go to that way. When you're translating your experience, you're able to speak confidently because you already understand you already understand finance, you understand banking, you understand agri. Just look for that. Doesn't mean you should not give it all a try, other industries, other tribe, or basically just map out your skills and see how you can translate it to product management. And now we have AI. Please make use of AI as much as you can, but do not use AI to fabricate answers because it most times will tell when you're interviewing, or tell it to help you structure, like look at your current skills. How can you prepare your answers and translate, especially if you've ever managed. I always tell people everybody have worked on a project at some point in your life. If you've ever planned a wedding, and that's how I knew I could actually work in this field because I've planned weddings several times, I've planned birthdays, I've planned parties. If you've ever done any of these things, you can actually work on as a product manager, as a delivery manager, anything. The only thing is you can probably, if you want to, if you I won't say you can work as a software developer, but if you've ever done any of this, you can work as a product manager, the product manager. If you've during your NYC, if you've ever led any project of any kind, that's also valuable. So try and look at all your experiences, all the things that you've done, your soft skills, and find a way to um translate it into what the company is looking for, research the company and translate your current skill into what the company is looking for, and then also volunteer to as many projects as possible. That way you become very confident when you are speaking on any product that any because most interviews lately would give you an assessment before sometime in 2020 is basically just asking you what do you know about agile, what do you know about product management. But now I've been in interviews where you have a live board and you have been asked to do maybe tell us what you're going to do on this product. Sometimes you're given an assessment, so they always want someone that has at least a bit of experience. So volunteer as much as you can, work and look at your previous experiences as well and see how you can translate it. That would help you stand out.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. That was great. Victor, so we actually need to wrap up quickly. Whilst I still want Oyindamola to ask a few questions from us, we're not doing that. Even if it's 3-5 minutes, we're doing that, right? So we'll just take Victor and then we have Oyinda ask us a few questions, right? So Victor, please let's be quick. Thank you. So you have the floor.
Thank you so much for the insightful section. Thank you so much. So, my question is in two folds. The first one, at what point do we really need to volunteer enough? At what points do we need to, stop volunteering and getting the job properly? At what point is volunteering never going to be enough for us to, get into the real deal as a proper PM? And
So
number two, that in the world of where AI is, painted on our faces everywhere, we just have AI can really do some of these processes. Some products really and truly they are becoming irrelevant. Back in the day, you have to have an app that will do your daily planner. You have a product that will do your editing? But these days, a lot of people can do some of those things, and some of those products in on Play Store and on Apple and Windows Store are really becoming uh, redundant because AI can do some of those things. With Gemini, I can do majority of what some 10 apps can do, and so seeing that it's becoming real that the whole product management thing can actually be ARized, if I would use that word. Um, And I think from our PM section with Mr. Banji, he really talked about PMs need to focus more on strategy, since the whole AI thing is, and the whole project management thing can really be, done at a snap with AI. So
Mhm.
how do we sharpen? The question is, how do we sharpen our strategy skill? Do we need to get some other business school training or strategy, special strategy classes, or to really build? Because I really feel, correct me if I'm wrong, I really feel that as PMs, seeing the reality that's done on us, I think we should hold more to strategy, because AI can't strategize as much as humans can do, because
Yeah.
we are the ones that we use the products. We are the ones that have that notice our behavior, notice our changes, and we are the ones that carry actually pivot things. So how do we do about strategy? Do we need to get further business school training or special strategy classes, to harness this reality? Thank you.
All right. So to your first question, you said, when do you stop volunteering? When do you think when can you stop volunteering and start working on the actual project? Yeah, you raised your hand again. I don't know, Victor. Do you want to say something? You raised your hand.
Oh, no, it's automatic.
Okay. So like I said, I think for volunteering, it's just one of those things that you can do it. Some people I did not volunteer anywhere, but I've seen people would volunteer and it worked for them. But it's just one of those things. It's not like everyone needs to volunteer. I also mentioned that at some point in our lives, we've all worked on a product. You, me, I'm a product. You are a product as well. You're constantly working yourself. You're constantly shipping something about yourself. You registered for a cohort, a product management class is also you trying to ship out a product for yourself. That's how I see it. I try to relate it to humans as well. So I believe that even if you don't volunteer, if you can look at the things you do around you and see how you can relate it to product management, it's also another thing that your current job as well. There's some things you do that has to do with product in a way that you probably don't know, but you just need to sit down and see how they actually relate one another. So I don't think you have to do it's not compulsory to volunteer, and I don't think you have to keep volunteering. In fact, if you work on one product and you ship it out, you are qualified to apply for as many product roles as you want to. So it's not there's no specific number of voluntary job you have to do to say you have the experience. You cannot get all I'm still learning. I'll keep learning. There are so many product managers I still want to be like. There are so many product managers that I look up to. There are things, in fact, just yesterday I was chatting with a product manager, a friend, and he was telling me something that I don't know. So you can't know it all. I won't say you should keep volunteering for 2 years before you can. No, you're going to learn in a real project management environment or in a real job. And the funny thing is, if you get a product manager role today and you're working on a fintech product, trust me, you have the experience in fintech, but there's still more that you don't know. There's product management in different fields, so you can't know everything in one year or 2 years. So if you get a job to volunteer on, that's perfect. If you don't get one, it's also perfect. It's not compulsory. What I would say is, if you don't get a job to volunteer on, just look within yourself. I'm sure most of us here are experienced in other fields, and there are one or two things that you've done that you've probably given initiatives in your company saying, let us integrate this software. It's going to make our work faster. That's also a product. It's just in another form. There is also some people who add probably just think of, like, if you think very deep, or you've organized something, you've shipped out something that you probably don't see it as a big deal. It's actually something, but you just need to find a way to map it. I remembered when I started as a scrum master, and what made me think I'm capable of doing this was that I related it to me cooking rice. I'm going to be very honest. I related it to me cooking rice. I've been in an interview where they've asked me to explain how what do I think my role is as a scrum master, and I gave a narration using a wedding. So that's why I said these things are around you. You just need to find it. Just need to find how you can relate it to your daily life, what you currently do if you don't get to volunteer. So I hope that answers your first question. So I can move to the second question. Can you just give it thumbs up if that answers your question? All right, cool. So the second one, AI. AI is there's no like we all know what AI is doing currently. AI is like a lot of people are saying as a threat, but what I can say is you need to find a way to use AI to make your work better. Everybody at some point needs to find a way to use AI to make their work better. And like you said, most product manager roles I've seen lately, they're not just asking for someone that can write a BRD, a PRD, or that can do a wireframes, or that can come up with design acceptance criteria and all that. They are not looking for that anymore. They are looking for people that would actually help, like you said, strategy that will help shape the product and ensure that we have a successful product. How do you want to ensure that your product is successful out there? I've been in a product manager interview where I was told I'll be given targets to sell the product as well. That's what the market is looking like right now. So will I say you should take courses? Well, I would say that you can never stop learning. So if you see any course that you think that can boost your confidence in that aspect, please do take the course. However, do not limit yourself because you don't have probably a sales skill, or you think your strategy is not good enough, you don't think you can strategize very well, and you don't want to apply for jobs or you don't want to take on opportunities, you would most likely get all the experience you want when you get when you're on the field, when you're actually working on a real product. So do not limit yourself. What I would say is you can take courses if you think it's relevant to what you're looking for. And I can tell you that as we're saying, oh, AI, there are still companies that they've not even match up to this pace that AI is going. So there are still companies that hire product managers that understand the basic thing. It might just be a startup. It might not pay you the $10,000 per year, but yes, you get the experience that you need. Maybe you can focus on companies like that first, and then you take courses that would help you boost your confidence on how to strategize. But yeah, that's what I'll say.
All right. Hi, Victor. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much. Very
Someone,
clear. Thank you very much.
someone raised and I was talking. I don't mind taking one more question. Yeah, please go ahead,
You don't
Michael.
mind? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hi, Oyindamola.
I can go
Good
ahead.
evening. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I really don't want to spend so much of our time on this call. So I just wanted to inform you I sent you a connection request on LinkedIn with a note, and
Oh,
I would
okay.
love your assistance on something. So I don't want to take our time here.
All right, no problem. I'll check that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Grind the lab.
Um,
Okay, good evening.
good
Good
evening.
evening, facilitator. Good evening, the guests. Thank you so much. Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, you said that one step you should try with the smallest version of the product. So I wanted you to cite like the smallest version of the product that you've had to scale, and at the biggest version actually gave a very good result that you never imagined from the start as
Um,
the product. Yeah.
um, I'm trying to give a very perfect example for you. I would say that I'll give you an example of a whole redesign I did. I didn't build a product from scratch. Well, I jumped on the product, and we had to revamp the whole payment system. And because the current one had so many steps and there was so many drop-offs along the way. So in that kind of scenario, what I did was instead of revamping the whole payment system at once, I had to break it down into bit by bit. So the payment system at that time included transfers, bill payment. Bill payment means paying for your DSTV, your data and airtime. Also, we introduced a new feature at that time that allows you to save your beneficiary, so you don't have to constantly enter the phone number or the account details. So in that kind of project, the main problem we wanted to solve was that there were so many steps to complete a transfer and it was frustrating. So we wanted to streamline it, one, and also just give the user a better experience, a better UI. So in that kind of way, what I did was to ensure that the most important thing, which is eliminate that frustration, reduce the screens, was what we focused on. And that was what we shipped first. Obviously, when we shipped that, we tracked it and say that the steps for transfer had reduced significantly and the number of transfers that happened at that time increased. And then we went forward ahead to work on other designs, which include introducing a new feature. And that's where I was saying that sometimes you ship from little and get the feedback, because what we did had worked and it like streamline the process of the transfer. We can actually tell that the customers are happy with that. If, for example, when we ship that the customers were still stuck, we are seeing a significant drop-offs in transfer, we would actually have to revisit it and not go ahead to continue redesigning and redesigning and redesigning. But that feedback alone gave us the answers that we are looking for, that we've solved a very significant problem with the transfer. And we're not able to introduce a new feature that allowed them, the user, to not only transfer, but you can now save your beneficiary. And if you want to do subsequent transfer, you don't have to re-enter all the old details again. So I think that's a very close example I can give. But I'm currently working on another project now, where we are starting from scratch. I don't have all the data for that here, but what we have done so far is that we have shipped out the first phase. In fact, I shipped it out just a few weeks ago, the first phase of, it's a very funny thing, it's a very known company in Nigeria, so I'm not going to say the name. We just shipped out the first part of the project, and at this phase, we are currently observing to see how the product is going to do. So whatever feedback we get would inform us on what we want to build next. I can tell you for a fact now that my team are not building anything right now. We are not doing anything to improve that product because we don't want to waste our time and our resources building what the customer would not like. So we want to get the feedback. We are currently tracking, seeing what is not working and what's working. And that feedback is what will now inform us on what we want to ship next. Do we want to improve our onboarding process? Do we want to improve our transfer process? Or what we have shipped out rather is working? I don't know if that answers your question.
Hello, Grind Lab.
Is she stay here? It looks like she's not here anymore.
All right. So we have to bring this session to a wrap. Right. Even I really can we get the slides and video replay? Sure, the session is being recorded, so we would have it updated on our YouTube channel. I'll probably share it on the community as well. Right. So of course, if you're on the community, you will definitely see that. So please let's appreciate Oyindamola, even though we are unable to get those questions I really wanted you to ask, but because our time is well spent.
I think
Right?
my question will be very, very simple. Is I hope you all are very confident that you can actually ship a product with this session that we've had, because that's the goal for me. My goal is not come and tell you that you have to have everything figured out, and that's why I said nobody, even me, I am learning every single day as I ship out a product. I learn new things. So my question to you all is, with this little thing that we've talked about here today, are you confident enough that you can ship out a product regardless of if you just started learning product management?
Right. So I feel like they're responding with their emojis.
Yeah, so
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Edith. Thank
oh,
you,
um,
Tachuko. Thank you, everyone. Somebody was unmuted. All right. We have to bring this session to because our time is fast
I
spent.
think
Hi,
Tammy
Tammy.
is
You want
saying
to say something?
something.
Oh yeah, I joined late, but the information I got was actually helpful. Like I'm really, really grateful. Thank
Oh,
you.
that's so nice. Thank you. Thank you, Oyinda, as well. Thank you so much, everyone. So we are calling it a wrap here. The recording will be shared on the
All right. Thank you, everyone. It was so nice to talk to you all. And I am rooting for every one of you here, regardless of your background, regardless of whatever you're currently doing. I believe that you're going to be an amazing product manager. Don't overthink it. Trust me. Even myself, I don't have the answers. None of us know what we are doing. We are just trying and getting the feedback and adapting it. So I'm rooting for all of you.
Thank you so much, Oida. Let's all have ourselves a wonderful weekend, right? Thank you. Bye,
Yes.
everyone. Bye, Oida.
Thank,
Bye.
thank you,
Bye,
Inda. Thank
everyone.
you,
Thank
every other
you.
Thank
person.
you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thanks so
And
much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, bye, bye,
Thank
bye,
you,
bye.
Madam Oyindamola. Thank you, host.
Bye bye.